Hey guys, it's Maggie and I am finally back today with another health update for you. And I don't think there's any better day to do this than World Ostomy Awareness Day, because I think that my ostomy is it's kicking me in the butt. I feel like I have a lot to catch you guys up on. Developments over just the last couple of days. I have been sharing a bit on Instagram, which is where it's just the easiest place to update quickly. So if you want to hear the stuff the fastest, feel free to follow me on there. But yeah. Okay, so where do I even begin? I don't know. I've talked a little bit about how I've been feeling over the last, I think, few months. Just kind of not feeling the best, and I had some different symptoms, like I told you about my kidney starting to hurt. And I have known for a little bit that just something doesn't quite seem right, and I couldn't put my finger on what that might be. Of course, when my kidney started hurting, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe it's a kidney infection and that's, the cause of all of this. But then the kidney pain started to dissipate. So I didn't really know. And I have just very, very slowly progressed and worsened. Nothing is critically wrong with me. I don't want anybody to be concerned or worried. It's just been a slow progression of not feeling myself and not feeling right. So it kind of started with my ostomy output getting watery. Honestly, since I had my colectomy in 2019, I feel like it's definitely picked up a bit, and I know that really doesn't make sense in my case. If you're just looking at somebody who had a colectomy and an ostomy surgery at once, it would make sense of why their output is going to be watery. But for myself, who's now had an ostomy just about 13 years, October 22nd will be 13 years. That doesn't really make a lot of sense because I wasn't using my colon that whole time. It was sitting basically dormant, but then I got it out and it felt like things were getting a little bit more watery. So I talked to my colorectal surgeon about that and he prescribed me loperamide, or Imodium as most people know it. So that helped, on and off as my output kind of would change consistency over the last few years. I've been using loperamide and more often food to help manage that. But more recently, that hasn't really worked super great. And I started to get very, very fatigued. I'm a tired person as it is, It's in my personality, but I am sleeping. I'm taking a nap every day for about 2 to 3 hours. That is not me. Actually, at the beginning of the summer, I was like, holy cow, I'm like almost never needing a nap. This is amazing. I feel great. And then it just totally reversed. And I will sleep and sleep and sleep, and I wake up and I feel the same as I did right before I went to sleep. And just feeling nauseated, just feeling like I'm gonna throw up like 50% of the time. So it's just slowly increased, slow enough that I don't think I really picked up on it until this past week where I was like, I feel bad. I don't feel good and I can't get anything done, which I hate. I've had so many exciting things for YouTube that I just had to be like, I gotta focus on myself for a minute. I don't like it because, I am a nurse and I've cared for GI patients with ostomies and I know all the things to do. I know all the things to look out for. But when it comes to myself, it's very easy to ignore symptoms and brush them off and just not really pay attention to them and kind of think, oh, well, that'll resolve in a day or two. Except it hasn't. So this past week, we last minute got invited to the Killers concert in Philly, which I shared a little reel or YouTube short, whatever you want to call it. I shared it on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. Just sharing the night and how I actually didn't feel very good that day. I had a pretty bad headache. I was pretty nauseated all day, and my ostomy output was pretty high. But we got invited last minute. Somebody couldn't use their concert tickets and asked us if we wanted to go, and we were like, do we do it? Heck yeah. So we went. It was an amazing time. But for myself, it was definitely shadowed a little bit because I didn't feel good. So by the end of it, I was kind of getting a little quiet, and Zach's like, are you okay? You know, because it's so loud in there, you can't talk to the person next to you. And I was just like, you know, he asks me if I'm okay so often, and I'm like, my answer is going to be the same. It's not changing. So I'm like, if you don't like the answer, because it makes him frustrated, not at me, but at the fact he can't do anything about it. Like, if you don't like the answer, don't ask, because it's not changing right now, and I don't know why. I'm not feeling better. So anyways, what you didn't see in that little clip, that little video, is the drive home, where I was so nauseated that I had to go silent. You know, I can't really talk when I feel like I'm going to throw up, because if I open my mouth, who knows what's coming out. So we had a very silent drive home because I'm just like, don't throw up, don't throw up, don't do it. And all I had left, I've used up every anti-nausea medication that I have. I've had Zofran, Reglan, Phenergan. Mind you, some of you guys, when I mention them, they're like, don't overuse them. I do not. I know this is really, really horrible to say as a nurse. I know I'm going to get judged for it. I was prescribed Phenergan in 2019 with my kidney. I just used the last dose. It's 2022. Almost 3 years it took me to go through one bottle, because I don't even use the full dose. I give myself half a dose. That's how slowly I use them. But all I had left was Reglan, which works sometimes. So I took, I think, my last dose of that and slept in bed with my famous blue bowl that I like to throw up into. I didn't throw up. So that was good. But I felt bad. I felt bad that night. So I told myself that night, said, you're going to feel better in the morning. You always feel better after a long sleep and, you know, earlier in the day. I said, don't not contact somebody. Remember how you feel tonight. Don't let this go. So the next day, I remembered that, and I was like, okay, we're going to reach out to a doctor. I've previously explained that my GI doctor-ness has been a little wonky the last couple years. I had a wonderful GI doctor in the practice that I go to. He retired. Then I was placed with a nurse practitioner who quite honestly was not very thorough with me. I know that I should have been thorough with her, but I don't know. Was not thorough at all. I had maybe a 5-minute telehealth conversation with her a couple years ago. No, year and a half ago. And that was that. And I left the call like, you didn't ask me anything about my ostomy. Like, I know I can offer up that information, but I'm like, I get a little overwhelmed when I'm meeting a new doctor. And it just was a totally opposite experience from my previous GI doctor. When I was really nervous, the first appointment with him, he was so thorough in asking questions. He went through everything, and I left feeling like, okay, he has all the information. Good. Anyways, I found out recently that nurse practitioner left, and I needed to get a new GI. So I called up for an appointment, and for me to be seen not in Philadelphia, just in case I had to drive myself to appointments. I really don't like driving in Philly. I'm a nervous driver. I'll do it if I have to, but I don't generally like to. So I asked if there was anything outside of Philly, and there was a location outside of Philly where there was a doctor, and I was told that the first appointment was March of 2023. And then I asked, okay, so what about in Philly? Because at this point I kind of knew I was feeling a little funny and wanted to run some ideas by a GI doctor. And they said January of 2023. And I was like, that's still really far. I'll just take the one outside of Philly so I know that I'm comfortable. But anyways, long story short, I went onto my app. I forget what day it was this week, to write a message, and the doctor, or I think it was a PA that was not really caring for me, but basically covering prescriptions for me, so signed off on my Humira. They were taken off of my list, so I couldn't message them like I had in the past. And I have not had a ton of luck calling this practice, which is why I like messaging, because at least then I have a paper trail, and I can see what I wrote them and remember, all the stuff. But so I messaged the doctor that had done my scope. They were still available to me. How this works, I have no idea. Now this person, I actually know more in a professional manner. We've been at conferences together. And he's very active in both the IBD and the Ostomy community. So I know he's good. I actually had asked for him to be my GI doctor a while ago, but his nurse shut that down, because I know that he has a lot of patients wanting to see him. Anyways, I messaged. I was like, I'm really sorry. I don't really know where to go. I'm not feeling great. And I want to see, A, can I get an anti-nausea medication? And B, can we do some blood work just to make sure that I'm not, out in left field with where I'm supposed to be? And I got a call. From him, and it was incredible. It really made me happy. I was tearing up telling Zach afterwards, because I haven't had that kind of care in a couple of years. And here's the thing about it. There are really good doctors, there are great doctors who do not have a therapeutic way of talking to you. But the therapeutic talking helps a lot, especially when you're emotional and you don't feel good. But my kidney surgeon, my colorectal surgeon, my doctor, my ENT, are all very straightforward. Let's get to the point. Let's get things resolved. Get stuff done for me. Helps me a ton. But they're not they're just straightforward. So this phone call was needed, where essentially he was like, I'm really sorry that your care fell off. And I'm like, no, this is a two-way relationship where I also need to advocate for myself. I understand that, and I haven't done a very good job of that. It's hard when you're not feeling great, or even when you're feeling great, you kind of are like, no, I don't want to be going to the doctor and stuff when I'm feeling good. I want to be enjoying life. So it's a two-way relationship, and I was failing on my part. I understand that. So anyways, I explained the symptoms I'm having: increased ostomy output, weight loss, fatigue, nauseated, just basically not able to get anything done, kind of foggy. And he was like, listen, thinking a couple things here, basically. He's like, your weight loss, I think, is probably more fluid related because of your ostomy output. And I was like, I can see that. I can see that being the case. I'm around 88 pounds right now, and that seems really low for me. I don't like that. And I told him that. He has seen me in person. He knows my size. I'm not a very big person. Every time somebody who knows me online meets me in person, they're like, wow, you're a lot tinier than I realized. I'm like, yes, I'm 5 foot, maybe half an inch. I've probably lost that half an inch at this point. I'm like 5 foot, typically around 92 to 94 pounds, and I'm 88, which is a significant loss for somebody who's already small, percentage-wise. She said, I think that you are probably dehydrated. And if I had been seeing all these symptoms in a patient that I was, caring for, I think that's the first thing I would have thought of. But for myself, I preach hydration, 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 electrolytes. Having an ostomy puts you at a high risk for dehydration, and I know that. So I'm very diligent about having electrolytes. I mean, I showed you on camera here. I've got my Noon that I buy all the time, and it helps a ton, but it's not helping enough. And so he said, I think you're dehydrated, and I think the first step is IV fluids. What do you think of that? And I was like, as a nurse, I'm like disappointed in myself that I let it get this far. As a patient, I'm like, hook me up. So, I don't know. I'm like sad about it because I went 13 years. The only time I've had IV fluids is when I'm getting procedures done or I'm in the ER or something like that. I've never had outpatient IV fluids. I've never needed them because I'm so diligent about my electrolytes. But yes, that was the first thing. The second is, he said, I don't think that this is it. I don't think this is the case. But with the sinus surgery you had and being on antibiotics a few times for it, I'm thinking potentially C. diff. And I have always been really confused about C. diff in somebody who does not have a colon. And he kind of explained it to me. Typically it's seen with people with colons, but when you have an ileostomy, especially I'm 13 years out, so my small bowel has adapted over time to sort of act like a colon. It absorbs more than the average small intestine that's got the colon as backup, which is so cool, amazing. But he explained it that they're seeing C. diff in patients that only have a small bowel when it's kind of adapted. And that makes sense to me. So he said, I don't think it's that, but it could be that. If you know C. diff, you know that it is odiferous. As a nurse, I was terrified of C. diff. Every time I had a patient like that, I was so cautious because I always thought, like, C. diff, that's going to kill me with an ostomy. Oh, God. I've just always been paranoid about it. The thing about the odor is that I use deodorizers in my ostomy all the time. So I may be covering something up that I don't realize. I have no idea. Again, he doesn't think that it's that, but it's a potential. So we're going to test me for C. diff. Also going to do all the GI labs, all the things that you would normally get, plus a Humira level. I told him I actually paused my Humira this last time because I was feeling so off. I was like, if this isn't an infection, I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to add to the problem by having Humira on board. So I just paused it last week. So I let him know. So we figured out what we're going to do when we draw the level, because there's a certain time during your 2-week span that you draw the level. So we're doing that. He also wants me to get an MRI because I haven't had any imaging. I had a scope in December with him, but I haven't had any imaging done in probably a couple of years. I think I was supposed to get one, but to be honest with you, insurance charges it doesn't cover all of it. It's expensive to get an MRI done. it's a pain in the butt. And I just switched insurances, so I know it's going to be an expense, but it's, at this point, I think I just have to, I got to go get it. It's a pain in the butt, but whatever. So the thing about the MRI, though, is he said, I don't want you to get it right now with you being dehydrated, because this will dehydrate you further. And I was like, you are correct about that one. It's so refreshing to hear from a doctor who knows ostomies. I don't think I've ever had a GI doctor actually be very educated about ostomies. It's so nice. It's so, even the GI doctor I had previously was not really knowledgeable about ostomy care. He was very knowledgeable about IBD, but not with ostomies. So to hear somebody else, I've never heard anybody else say this, that the contrast for MRIs is so dehydrating. Heck yeah, it is. Every time I get an MRI, I am so paranoid that my bag is going to leak, because you have to lay in the MRI machine for half an hour as your bag just continues to fill up with water. Well, contrast. The contrast comes right through you. So, yeah. The other thing is, I mentioned about my kidney. I said, in 2019, I had a UPJ obstruction with my right kidney, had surgery, it resolved. Started to have very similar pain in my left kidney, not nearly as severe, which it's actually resolved for the most part. And I was like, maybe there's an infection there that's just not presenting to me. So I'm like fully aware it's a urinary tract infection. I have no idea. There is a bug on my tripod. Are you freaking kidding me? Come on, buddy. All right, he's just gonna chill there. So I mentioned that, and now that I'm thinking about it more, if I'm dehydrated, I'm wondering if either maybe I had a small kidney stone, or my kidneys got a little, damage to them because I'm dehydrated. I don't know. So, yeah. I'm trying to think of what else. Well, I am getting an ultrasound this week on my kidneys. I am supposed to get a renal flow scan, but that uses a diuretic, and again, trying not to dehydrate myself if I am very dehydrated. And I have to get a urinalysis with that as well, and I think all the blood work matched up with my GI, so it'll all count towards my kidney stuff too. It'll all look the same. So that's kind of what's going on. Now, yesterday was Friday. I got a call from the nurse at the hospital who was helping to set up the IV fluid administration. I was a little confused about it. I thought it was going to be a one-time thing where I got a couple liters to just basically help boost me. But what it sounds like is I'm put in right now for 2 times a week. I have a lot of friends that actually get like IV fluids every week, and they talk wonders about it. I'm struggling with it a little bit because, 13 years later, and now I'm needing IV fluids. The hope, though, is that this is not a permanent thing. This is just to get me back on track while we figure out why my ostomy is acting the way it is, why I'm having these weird symptoms, resolving that, but also keeping me in check with IV fluids, because I think I just look at some of the other symptoms that are minor to me, but God, they match up with dehydration. Like when I stand up, I get dizzy and my heart races. And I just ignore them because I'm like, it goes away. It's fine. No, that's dehydration, Maggie. You know that. You. Oh, God. So, yeah. It's Saturday, so I don't know when the IV fluids will happen. Another thing that the doctor ordered for me was Lamodal. It's a medication that slows ostomy output a bit. It's different than loperamide. It's prescription, whereas loperamide is just over the counter. Because I told him I've used loperamide it usually works. It has not recently. What I'll say though is food is helping a little bit, at least a little bit. I told him I was using things like oatmeal, pasta helps me a lot, potatoes. So last night for dinner, we had some salmon, but salmon tends to go through me fast. So I was like, okay, let's counteract this by having some sweet potatoes and Brussels sprouts. And I know some of you guys with ostomies or IBD or GI illness in general are looking at the Brussels sprouts like, oh my God, Maggie, you're gonna obstruct yourself. Nope. No. Everything is going through me so fast. But with the sweet potatoes and the Brussels sprouts, I steam them pretty well because I'm aware, I don't want to obstruct myself, but it's really hard for me to do that right now. I got about 10 hours of normal output, like exactly where I want it to be. Unfortunately, this morning, it has gone back to like water. It's water in my bag right now. So, I'm like, maybe I should eat sweet potatoes 3 times a day. I don't know. Maybe that's going to be the resolution. Who knows? That I just have to really manage it with food. Because if I can avoid medication, I'm all for it. Obviously, I'm not against medication. I'm on Humira. I'm on a couple of other medications. They're very helpful. But I like if I can manage things with diet, that's great. As for the medications, he also ordered me Zofran, which I can go pick that up today. But the Lamodal, my pharmacy is out of, and I don't know when they're going to get it. So I can call them and see where else, they've got it. But I'm not in a super rush right now, just because, I ate the sweet potatoes and Brussels sprouts last night and it slowed down. So honestly, I might just go cook up some sweet potatoes this morning, maybe a couple Brussels sprouts, and do it again. And then rehydrate. So this was my last noon tablet, but I did order some more. I ordered $40 worth of noon tablets, which I like the best just because they have the least sweet flavor. I really don't like the really sickly sweet. It's like they're trying to cover the salty flavor, and I don't mind the saltiness in these. Actually, these aren't salty at all, though. They're just like a mildly sweet liquid, which I'm fine with. So, yeah, I have more coming today. So what I'm doing is just doubling, tripling up on my electrolytes, working with the food, taking loperamide. Again, I don't think it's doing much. I think food is doing more for me than loperamide is. And awaiting a call to set up the IV fluids. Because of where I'm located compared to my hospital, we're not sure that home care will come to me. It would be amazing if they did. It would be so much more convenient if they did, especially with 2 times a week. But if not, I will drive myself to the location where I can get it done. It's about an hour away. And Zach was like, man, that's really annoying. I was like, you know what though? I am willing to drive myself there twice a week if it means that I feel better and I'm not freaking sleeping all the time. Our house is a disaster right now. I can barely get any work done because I'm just so exhausted and it's like a freaking cloud over my brain. I can't focus on anything. I'm just so out of it. I had to tell the person that I'm working with that, like, I'm sorry, I am so out of it and so spacey this week because I know I am. And I'm trying to catch up on everything, and I have so many other emails to get to as well. I'm hoping that the IV fluids will just bump me up and I'll be back to it. I know you guys are going to say, give yourself time, give yourself rest. I don't want to. I like being busy. I like being engaged. I like getting stuff done, and I like being reliable. And I feel like I'm not that right now. So that's why I contacted the only person I could think of because this is very frustrating to me. It's very frustrating to Zach. Like I said before, he's not frustrated at me. He is frustrated with me. And also because there is nothing that he can do to help me. And that was the frustration growing up that my dad had. So I'm trying to explain that just because you can't do anything to actually physically help, you are helping me by checking in on me, feeding the dogs when I'm passed out on the couch, doing those things. Like that is helping. Of course, then I feel guilty because I just feel so completely useless. I mean, you guys have seen I haven't even uploaded on YouTube. I was so regular in the beginning of the summer. You guys saw I was posting 3, sometimes 4 times a week, and I just haven't had that capacity, and I want to because I love YouTube. I love sharing with you guys, and I wanted to give you that very long update of what is going on. I know that was a lot, so thank you to those who stayed tuned in this long. I'm hoping that I'm going to be on the road to better days shortly. I have high hopes for these IV fluids just to get me back on track. Of course, when you get that kind of infusion done to help with your hydration, you don't stop drinking your electrolytes. So I'm going to keep on track with these. Don't think that I'm like, let me just rely on the IV fluids. Come and get me. Not at all. Because my goal is to be independent of that. I want to drink. A question that I got a couple times just because I was sharing on Instagram is, do I have a port? No, I do not. I am relying on my veins. I wouldn't say that I have bad veins, but I would say as a small, petite person, I don't have a lot to choose from. I know my good spots. I know my bad spots. I have some sort of Y in the crook of my right arm here that makes it hard to advance a catheter. So, we're going to see how it goes. I don't want a port. I would like to avoid that if at all possible. That's not a conversation that's being had because a couple rounds of IV fluids might just be what I need to get me back, and then orally I can manage this. But I just unfortunately let myself go a little too far. So I'm hoping we can get the IV fluids going soon. I recognize it's a Saturday. It's probably not going to be this weekend. It'll be sometime next week that we start this, but yeah. I said that you could climb on my tripod, not my camera. Come on. You have a million other places in this house to go. I didn't kick you out. There we go. He's on the floor. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you want a more play-by-play, Instagram is where I've been sharing a little bit more as things happen, but I'm going to do my best to take you along this week on any appointments I have. Like I said, I have the ultrasound, and if I can get the IV fluids going this week, then I'll share about that. I'll do my best. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to do my best with it, but really appreciate you watching this, and happy is it World Ostomy Day or is it Ostomy Awareness Day? Are those 2 different days? I always thought that World Ostomy Day was October 3rd, but you know what? Don't listen to me on it. Every year, other people do so amazing at advocacy online with Ostomy Awareness Day. Thankfully, I have a sponsorship through Convatec, so I'll be sharing on Instagram a little bit more of educational content for this month, but I feel like every October I've got something going on, whether it be positive or negative. So, alright guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next.